Hey guys, it's me. Oh, hello. Hi. All right, we're on. Okay, so here we are today. This is what we've been doing. I want to show you guys something. I'm curating an art exhibition, potentially. We have a gigantic pile in front of me of paper and drawings that was saved in boxes for a long time. And I have a garbage can right next to me with stuff like this. Let me show you what goes in the garbage can when you're curating an art exhibit. Stuff like this. See this? Yeah, not very good, right? I mean, it's a little doodle. Let's get something on the back there. It's kind of not really worth keeping. So it goes in the garbage can. Now, when you have a family of artists, which I have, my wife is an artist. My kids are both very much into drawing and art. One of them more so than the other, but both of them definitely. You end up with a lot of stuff. Let me show you just a sampling of what we have here. I'm going to throw this over here into the pile. And I'm going to move the garbage can out of the way right there. All right, you get this. Let me show you. Things like this, right? Now, as you may be aware, artists are notorious for not being organized, not really being the most disciplined sort of people. I happen to be a disciplined kind of person, so I'm here to provide some sort of cohesive thing, cohesion. This is one thing that my daughter drew. I don't know who these people are. Ariel, Megan, and Emmeline. I know who Emmeline is. That's my daughter, but the other two, I have no idea. So we have this little piece of paper with, like, scraps on the top and junk on the back. So it's up to me to decide whether we're going to keep this and use it, and then what we're going to do with it. So I think this looks like it could be used for something, so I'm going to keep it. It goes in the keeper pile, which over the last 10 minutes of sorting through the gigantic mountain of stuff that we have, came up with all these drawings in the keeper pile. Now they're all very disorganized, and we have stuff like this with like 2 drawings on the one page and a little piece of doodle on the back. It's up to me to kind of figure out what we're keeping and how then we're going to present it to people. So this is the task of a curator. And I'm the curator, apparently. I have this, look, a cool paper bag mask. You see that? Goes right in your head like this. Isn't that terrifying?
It's crying rainbows.
It's crying rainbows. So this is what I have to work with, guys, right now. So I got my daughter's little scrapbook here, all kinds of stuff in it. I have to figure out how this is going to be probably carved up and presented to the world. A little box of TNT right there. It's TNT. Like, yeah, TNT, like what took the World Trade Centers down, except not as explosive. That was now thermite. The Spider-Man drawing. that my wife made a long time ago and sent to me. I remember you sent that to me in the mail before we started dating. This is something my son made. It's nightmarish. Check this out. You can't really see very good in this light. I'm trying
I don't
to find something that my son made here. It has a very interesting style. Alexander. Is this Alex? Alexander made this. He's very
something.
Intense. It comes out in his artwork.
I drew that.
He did.
No, Emmy did.
Emmeline drew this. Picture of Hero Brian. Hero Brian is some video game character, right? Something
Made up video game character.
some kind of pen thing. So I don't draw anything really. I'm terrible with visual, like brain to hand to paper stuff. I'm more of a music. Music comes naturally for me. Building things like houses and stuff. That kind of commercial properties, skyscrapers, buildings, all that kind of stuff. That's my kind of art. But I do appreciate what it takes to make a drawing and or a painting. So that's part of why I'm doing this. To help. Let me see, what else do we have to show here? To show people. And look at this, for instance. This is just, a little sketchy thing that my daughter made. But it's basically stuck away in a notebook like this.
Alex made this.
And will probably just sit in a box forever unless some insane person like me took a few hours out of a day and came along to try to help with a presentation of some sort. And my wife Crystal is here helping, and she's done a lot with the organizing process over the last few hours. And our backs are killing. I'm very tired. And we still have a mountain of paper to go. Look at, let me see. I don't really want to show you guys the mountain of paper in the room here. It's large. But we're gonna get through it, and we're gonna have a good pile, and we're gonna have several bags of garbage.
Recycling.
Yeah, recycling that ends up in the landfill because recycling companies don't actually recycle a great deal of what they take away. More recommend watching, and I think it's a 60 Minutes Australia about recycling companies and how they end up sending most of their plastic to illegal dumping plants in Malaysia. I believe that happens indeed all over the world, and definitely in wealthier countries, which is where I live. You guys like chocolate? Mm. Hmm? Mm-hmm. So, has stuff like this. And then in the back of it, there's this. Now, when it comes to presenting this, we have to decide which side is going to be the front and which is going to be the back.
It could be one of those frames that's like just 2 panes of glass.
Because
Just swap it once in a while.
yeah, because my kids don't listen when I tell them to draw only on one side of the paper because people are going to see only one side of it, typically. They're getting better at listening and doing what I ask them to do, and understanding that it's it's okay to use just one side of the page when you're making artwork. Like here, see, they did that here. This is only on one side. Now, granted, that isn't much of anything. And there's this here, which is on one side. That's not very good. So we're going to take this, crumple it up, throw it in the garbage. We have here, I believe this is a very primitive attempt at 9-cat from probably like my 2 or 3-year-old daughter. It looks like a 9-cat, I think. We'll keep that. That's cute. We have this. Can't really see that too good, but it's like just a person kind of there. And look, only on one side. See, she listed that. There you go. We'll keep that. Yeah. So yeah, this is what it's like to have kids. For any of you out there who don't have children, you end up with
Mountains of paper.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boxes. Some of them very large, of art that you have to eventually somehow sit down and sort through, because they're not going to do it. It's just going to sit there because they're artists, and artists have no organizational skills whatsoever. Artists need help with organizing, and I appreciate that. Probably a large number of my fellow Americans are artists because I'm here to help organize things, and this is what I'm good at. This is actually very easy for me. It's just my kids. So that's Peppa Pig. But I can help organize things on a very mass scale. Hello. You pronounce your name. I can't read that alphabet. Can you read that?
The boss. The boss.
It's the boss.
The boss. The boss.
That's what it says, right?
Well, I've only got one boss, and right now that's me. But I'm sure you're somebody's boss.
Okay.
My wife is not Russian, although she did study Russian, actually.
I can read.
She can read a little bit. She used to study the Bible in Russian because she is from the New York City area, and there are many Russian-speaking people in the New York City area. There are indeed several Russian-speaking Bible study groups in the New York City area, and she is a minister, a teacher of the Bible, and she wanted to learn Russian to help Russian-speaking people learn more about the Bible. So she learned some Russian. Yep, but she's not Russian. She's American. She's well, New York is definitely it's a mixed
New York isn't really American.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's
Well, I mean, in the sense of like,
New York is very very mixed culturally. It's diverse, but it's also kind of a melting pot in a way, a lot like Boston, which is very diverse. But Boston is probably more so of a melting pot than New York because it's smaller and you get more of an opportunity to meet and actually kind of interact socially with people. New York is very fast paced and it's just work, 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 work all the time. Um, yeah, America's very different from place to place. There's not really, you know, there's not really one culture throughout all of America, the United States. It's we're more kind of held together by uh, basic fundamental ideas rather than a culture necessarily. I mean, it's different from, say, Florida to Washington State. It's very different from California to Maine, and Alaska and Hawaii are very different as well. Um, it's a country that's held together not necessarily by culture or even language, but more principles and uh, similar values that we all tend to share, despite you know disagreements on certain things. But that's why we have the platform of our government, the Congress, where we can kind of meet or elect representatives to meet on our behalf and discuss these differences so that we can work something out that's a good arrangement for everybody, hopefully. So, yeah. Um, I think Russia is, and I don't know much about what it's like to live in Russia, but I do know a good bit about Russia. And I think Russia is probably more sort of multicultural than the United States. There's some very diversely different cultures existing inside Russia that we,
those are terribles.
that we don't necessarily have in America. We have a tendency towards certain cultures that can kind of get along with each other more easily. But yeah, Russia is different, but not too different. Yeah, you might think so. It probably depends on which part of Russia. I mean, from what I understand, there are some very uh, different cultures living in the same space in at least several parts of Russia, and this can cause problems for you guys. But I understand it. You guys hate liberalism, but actually, you should be proud of it. Well, I think America is a mix again, liberal and conservative. It's not really we're tend to be liberal some ways and conservative in others. It's not really like it's not really one way or the other. It depends on what is right at the time, I think. And I think right now, for instance, it's kind of important that the United States leans towards conservatism, especially in relation to economics, because our economy's been pretty bad for the last couple of presidential administrations. So if you're talking like 16, 18 years, we haven't had a great economy. It's been a stalled economy. Um, and we've been engaged in a lot of military expenditures. So, hmm yeah, I personally would like to see a middle ground struck between liberal and conservative that's balanced and doesn't sort of make society go bipolar every 4 to 8 years, because we had Bush, which was very conservative in some ways and very liberal in others, and then we had Obama, which was very liberal in a lot of ways and very conservative in others, and it just ends up polarizing things, and I don't think that's good for anybody. I think you need a balance point, and we're trying, I think, to kind of meet that balance point better. And I think what needs to happen in order to reach that is perhaps reduce the power of the presidency, because the president was granted too much power by the Bush administration, and nobody's done anything to kind of counter that. I would like to see, like, if I actually end up being president, I would like to see a reduction in the powers of the presidency and more balance restored um, to the government itself, and more power returned to the people, because we just had so many of our basic fundamental things, like our Bill of Rights, completely encroached upon and ignored, disregarded, not enforced by the federal government, and indeed intruded upon by our own government. So this is something that I've been trying to wake people up to since it started, which was, I believe, during 2001, starting with the events of 9/11 and the subsequent war, and the assault on our civil liberties that began shortly after that. And I've been trying to wake people up to the dangers of this and how it's just really bad for everybody since that point. And it's been a real challenge. Uh, I've been treated very badly by a lot of people for trying to do that. But people like myself, and certainly individuals like Edward Snowden, and others, many others, have realized that we have been under attack and under assault, and our basic freedoms are under threat of being taken away at any given moment, and we have to keep fighting for them. And I've been working for that for the last 18 years. Among other things, but and I'm not going to stop. So, get rid of that. Yeah. Well, maybe hold on to one. I guess do something with that later. But Don't throw it out yet, I guess. But
Write it down.
so I think that unfortunately, when these things happen in America, and I've gotten out of America a lot since 2001, um, mostly to Europe. I think I see the negative impact that the insanity inside the United States has on the rest of the world at times. And I don't think many Americans are really ready to understand that yet. There's a tendency towards like wanting to just isolate and not really understand that we are all effectively connected, and that what happens in America affects the rest of the world. Um, I see how the Iraq War affected Europe. I see how the Obama administration affected Europe, and indeed a lot of the rest of the world. I don't like it. And uh, speaking to, I think, a chat room full of non Americans, I want you guys to know that if I do end up being president in 2024, I will be very careful not to make any decisions or allow anything to happen that would negatively impact you guys because, um, you know, I understand the responsibility that uh, we have towards you guys, and you know, I don't like going to other countries and being hated for what my government did. I don't like, um, well, American imposes itself. I think that's a very you know, sweeping statement to kind of make, but I think what happens is situational, and you don't necessarily understand what's going on. Really, you have responsibility towards yourself. Well, we actually do have responsibility towards the rest of the world, and this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Um, but we haven't always used it in the most tactful way. Rest is propaganda. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would like to ask you then, for instance, if somebody, if the United States didn't, who's not, what do you, we're not going to fight anybody. I don't know what you're talking about, but can you stop, please? This is very interesting because we have an American, a British person, and a Russian all in the same chat room. And I think this is interesting because speaking geopolitically, the US, Britain, and Russia have a lot to work out. Um, I think that America is an offshoot of Britain and Russia. And I understand both of you guys' cultures very, very well. But I think neither Britain nor Russia understands the position that America is in very well either. I think I would encourage you to just study American history a bit better and understand that we are in a position where we are capable and able to understand a lot of things that go on in this world, and able to do something to help smooth out problems that exist throughout the world. And if we didn't do that, the entire world perhaps would be a lot worse off. I know that's difficult to understand, but take, for instance, we'll go back to, say, when America became a world power, which was um, 1914, when World War One started. If the United States hadn't have gotten involved in the events of World War One, what would have happened? The whole world would be very different. If the U.S. hadn't gotten involved in World War Two, Hitler may have conquered Europe, and it might be the German Empire. Um, he may have then, who knows, gone on to conquer Russia. He may have conquered North America. The Japanese would have conquered all of Asia. Um, there might not be a China, there might not be a Russia if the U.S. have hadn't helped. So it's like that. We're still in that position of responsibility towards the rest of the world, and we want to help. And we can understand things a lot more readily than perhaps other cultures because we're an offshoot of many cultures. Does that make sense to you guys? Like I know I look, I mean I'm a white guy. I look European. My family are from Europe, but like culturally I'm not just that. I grew up with a lot of different cultures, and I grew up with people from everywhere, and it all gets into you. um, and I think maybe there's a, what do you mean? Sounds like too much self. What do you mean self? I don't understand what you mean. But I think you maybe just need to understand the position that we're in a little bit better, and understand that the world was a mess before the United States ever came along. Really, like, I mean, look at world history. Mm, yeah, certainly the Soviet Union was instrumental in defeating Hitler. I agree. Um, that was the dumbest thing Hitler ever did, was attack the Soviet Union in wintertime. Um, but certainly, if America hadn't provided reinforcement for Britain on the side of Europe, uh, there would have been, likely no progress made in defeating Hitler. It was pretty much right when America jumped in and invaded France with assistance from Britain and other forces, I believe. Um, but that was pretty much the end for Hitler. Um, and certainly when America jumped in the Pacific, it assisted in defeating the Japanese Empire. Self at maybe is selfish. Self. Yeah, I think you need to understand their Russian guy, the boss, is that that's funny, but is is that maybe you are also being fed propaganda about America? So maybe you should think about that as well. We're all fed propaganda from you guys. I think to I think it's unfair to say you guys because we're a country of very individual minded people. There's not really that kind of mentality. We're very individualists, very individualist. Um, and this is a thing that people around the world, in my view, a, a lot of people fail to understand about Americans is that we are a nation of individuals. So the idea of tribalism doesn't really exist in the United States. It's some people that want it to be like that, but it isn't really the way it is. It's a false narrative and a false concept of what America's like. If you think that that's what it's like, um, you can't be fed propaganda. You think so? But I can, right? I can be well, I believe propaganda, and I can be fed propaganda. But you can't, right? You think that's possible? Come on, you know that's not true. There's propaganda everywhere, and it's important that we, meaning you, me, us, and everybody else, uh, you can see through the propaganda. I can see with your eyes too. Well, that's good. I think I can with see things through your perspective also. And indeed, my family are some of them were probably Russian, so I understand a lot about what it's like to be Russian. I grew up Russians in America. Some of my closest friends are indeed from Russia, but grew up in the United States. So it's not, uh, you know, it's not something I don't understand. I think that it's important to try to understand. The best way to beat propaganda is to read the news from the enemy. Who's the enemy? I don't know why you think anybody as an enemy. I don't believe that people are your enemy until you choose to make them your enemy. I think it's a choice that you make. I think it can be propagandized into choosing to make somebody your enemy, but you don't have to choose that, and you don't have to believe that someone is your enemy just because someone told you that. I don't think of Russians or British or anybody as an enemy unless um, I see them behaving in a way that indicates that they're my enemy. And I've never seen in my lifetime that anybody Russian or British has, in the even up to and including the governments, have behaved in a way that makes them an enemy. Um, so I think that's something we're going to work on in the future, you guys, is um, working things out between, especially the U.S., Britain, and Russia, and Europe, and other places, so that we can indeed, you know, tone down and de-escalate all this rhetoric that stems from past history, relating specifically to World War II and the Cold War. And I think we're gonna deconstruct the mythology that we have to be antagonistic towards each other because we don't. We're basically the same people. We just have different nationalities and live in different parts of the world. I mean, look at me. You know, I could be I could be British. I could be Russian. You wouldn't know just by looking at me. So there's not, I mean, I would fit in walking down the streets of London until I open my mouth, or I could pretend to be English. Let me try to be English. Let's see. Hello, how are you? You all right, mate? See, I can do an English accent. My Russian accent's probably terrible, so I'm not gonna try. But like, um, what I'm saying is that we might be slightly, superficially different, but we're basically the same people. And the fact that we've been taught to view things a certain way is indicative of the fact that somebody wants us to to be antagonistic towards each other, and we have to realize who that is and work together to to stop this from happening anymore. Um, yeah, well, English guy, I understand that you think that about Crimea, but I think if you look at the facts relating to Crimea, um, the people in the Crimean Peninsula actually want the Russian army to come in there and protect them because they weren't feeling safe. A lot of those people view themselves as Russian, and they welcomed the the reintegration of Crimea into Russia because it is indeed naturally a part of Russia. So you're kind of taught you like in Britain, you're propagandized to think that this is some sort of insane behavior, but uh, Putin was trying and is trying to merely to provide security for his own people in Crimea, and they welcomed it. So who are we really to dictate, you know, whether that should happen or not? We should let the people there decide. And I think it's unfair towards Russia to kind of dictate, to be trying to dictate or imputing motive towards um, the actions of the Russian government and indeed Mr. Putin. I think he does care about his people, and that's ultimately what he was trying to do was provide help for his people. Biggest problem. I don't think I'm God. I know who God is, and I think that God is God. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think that we should all, you know, try to look to God for guidance and direction, not ourselves, because we can't do anything of our own uh, initiative. And I think, to make statements like that, it just shows a lack of understanding. about the United States of America and a lack of awareness. Even the well, I think different people in the U.S. government view things differently, and different people in the United States of America view things differently. Like I said, we're a nation of individuals, and there's not, you know, I don't think that you're going to find many Americans who agree 100% on anything. And I think that there's, a lack of understanding about the United States of America around the world. So that's all I'm going to say, you guys. I would encourage you to try to understand us better and understand our people better and understand that the United States government is not, you know, a it, looking at our government is not a good way to necessarily understand our people, because especially recently, our governments have been heavily infiltrated by individuals who don't have American interests at heart at all. Frankly, I think, yeah, that's not really true either. I think that you're if you it's different. It's unfair to confuse the U.S. government with the people who have infiltrated the U.S. government and try to turn it into their own little kingdom, because if they're doing that, it's effectively no longer the U.S. government. It's a foreign government inside the United States. Um, the real U.S. government is the American people. And if you want to, actually know what American people are like, you should talk to people who maybe aren't in the government, or try to understand people who aren't in the government. I'm not in the government. What's a country, you guys? Like, is what's more important, people or countries? I want to understand that. What do you guys think is more important, a country or people? The speaker? Are you talking about the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, for instance? I think there are more important things than the country, and one of one of those things is the people. The people are ultimately more important than the country. From the outside looking in, Congress, yeah, but you're looking at a slanted media version, and I get it because, like, I watch British media as well. Um, they're really doing everything they can to kind of portray America as kind of the U.S. government as a basket case right now, but like it's not really what you're being told. I would just say, you guys, if you're looking at mainstream media at all for information about what's going on in the United States, you're not going to get an accurate. Okay, people are important until they are Mexican. That's really funny. Haha. Or until they're Russian and you're a Soviet agent. Think about that. Think about Russian history, right? What did the Soviet Union do to Russia, do to Russian people? Okay, so if you want to like do that, then go right ahead, but it's not really productive. I don't have any problem with Mexican people. I have very good friends that are Mexican. If you're talking about the wall, it's because there's a lot of crime coming into the United States through Mexico. It's not because of Mexicans. 99% of the problems that come into the United States through Mexico are not originally Mexican. They're coming from other parts of the world. I like Mexican people. They work hard, they care about their families. They're a good example, generally speaking. I mean, they're not all like that, of course, but all the ones I know are. And I like Russian people, frankly. I think just this guy's being an ass. Trying to, or just trying to be funny, I guess, right? Is that it? It's probably it. Maybe I have something to learn about Russian humor still. I'd probably get it better if I had a shot of vodka first. What? Do we have any vodka? Uh, there's my back.
Take a shot with your camera.
Well, yeah, I think I need a pint of Guinness and a vodka, or let's see, tequila to get through this chat, you guys.
Some bourbon.
What do we have there?
Yeah,
We got
bourbon.
all kinds of liquor, you guys, at least, because like we're made up of a lot of different groups, and inevitably that's going to change. It's just a matter of like, I mean, for instance, I have a very different background than say like Barack Obama, but I could still become the president, and that's going to have an impact if that happens and change things. It's inevitable. And so therefore, if you really think about it, the government isn't always a reflection of the people, because there are times when um, people in the government have their own agendas and get those things done rather than represent what the people want. I'm certainly not going to try to do that. But I mean, I believe Barack Obama did. I believe that George Bush did. I believe that Donald Trump is trying very, very hard to do to get done what the people want done, the majority of people. And He's trying to keep everybody happy. He really is. And like the media are making him look very bad because I think they want people to turn against him because uh, they've had their candidates in office doing their bidding for the last 16 years, and Trump is effectively a man of the people in a weird way, and he wants to make things work for everybody, and they don't want that. So they're trying to make him look as bad as possible, so that people don't actually pay attention to what he's really doing. Like, do you actually know anything about Donald Trump, for instance? Do you guys actually know anything about him other than what you hear from mainstream media? I would say probably not. So how can you base your opinion on the man on anything if you know mainstream media is a joke?
Yeah.
Melania would be fat. Yeah, that's really funny.
Well, then look at
Am I fat? Do you see? Do I look fat to you? See that? There's not much fat there, pal. I think you're
Call it a Democrat.
I think you're watching too much television and too much propaganda.
He's calling somebody a Democrat. I don't know.
Fat butt in brain. I have a fat brain, is that what it is? I don't know what that means, but I don't you'll have to teach me some Russian because I don't understand what you're saying. America's not really a democracy, English guy. It's a constitutional republic. The United States of America is a constitutional republic primarily that operates in a democratic way, but democracy implies that we have no guidelines and that it's just subject to the whims of the people. It's not how it works. It's a constitutional republic, and we have that for a reason because if you just let democracy run wild, and it can be very disastrous. Hitler was elected democratically, for instance. So we have those basic fundamental principles which guide us, and those are not negotiable. The problem with a lot of people is their view of that, and the view that the Constitution is negotiable. It isn't. Let's see. Who should I answer here? The ultimate goal of any and all forms of government is to put the interests of the nation above all else. Well, Abraham Lincoln summed up the United States very well when he said it's government of the people, by the people, for the people. And this is why America's different. It's supposed to be government that represents the individuals as best as possible. Yeah, no, Hitler was democratically elected, you guys. So, that's why we have a constitutional republic, is because the founders realized that democracy without some kind of tether to keep it from going out of control could end up disastrously, as I believe happened in ancient Greece. They were students of history and realized that, well, the Greeks had democracy, but they didn't have sort of the same fundamental guidelines that the United States of America has. So they, the founding fathers, laid out what they believed to be appropriate guidelines that are non-negotiable. You don't have to, if you don't like the Constitution, you don't have to live in the United States. But if you come to the United States and start trying to attack the Constitution, even doing it democratically, you're going to have very serious problems. I would strongly discourage anybody from trying to do that, because the majority of Americans don't view these things as negotiable and uh, subject to discussion. Even it's not something we're going to negotiate, like our freedom of speech. It's non-negotiable. Um, our right to defend ourselves, absolutely non-negotiable. Right to marry. Educated by eating burgers. Oh, that's very funny. Yeah. I educate myself by reading, not by eating burgers. I feed myself with burgers sometimes, but I have indeed been a vegetarian for long points of time in my life, and I know was the case in the Soviet Union for a lot of people. Stalin basically starved people to death. So if we're ignorant because we feed ourselves, then that's, you know, I, I don't mind being ignorant. I'd rather be fed than, starve to death by a totalitarian, fake, fake communist Bolshevik government. I would, you should come over to my house. I'll make you a burger. We're gonna have burgers and vodka, okay? It'll be good. Well, wouldn't you rather be well fed than starve to death? You know, I don't. I'm not obese. I mean, I'm a healthy guy, but like, I think the I think the stereotype of the obese American is simply not true. There are obviously people who do eat too much, but that's in any country. Well, unless those countries don't actually have food because they're uh, either communist or socialist, overly socialist. Maybe that's why so many, you don't see obese Africans, for instance, do you? Very many. Maybe African Americans. At least they're getting fed. So, yeah, I mean, it's easy to make fun, but like, would you rather need something and not have it, or have something and not need it? That's my thinking on the matter. So Stalin may have been a tyrant. Yeah, but he also like mass murdered his own people. How is that? I mean, a tyrant with nuclear capability is still a tyrant who mass murders his own people and starves them to death. I don't really, I don't see that there's any reason to view Stalin as anything other than a horrible human being who killed Russians. And I like Russians. I don't want to see them die. I want to see them live and be healthy and happy and have a government that helps them. Yeah, I've never shot myself. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, if someone were to try to attack me, I might defend my facts about what's going on in the United States when it comes to gun violence. You'll see that a lot of the gun violence is happening because of foreign influence in the country and in places where some people don't have as much access to firearms to defend themselves with. So I don't know who the boss person is, but they just seem like a troll, and like they really don't understand very much. I think they've been heavily propagandized. Yes, okay, sure, whatever you say. I'm just gonna ignore this guy now. You guys want to watch me eat a burger?
Mukbang. You can do,
What?
can do mukbang.
Mukbang?
Mm.
What do you mean?
That's where people go on YouTube live stream and eat.
Mm. Mm. Freedom fry. Mm. Look at this. Look what I have that you don't. I have beer. You know why? Because of 100% grade A American capitalism. I worked, and then I went out and bought beer. I love freedom, don't you? Or are you guys just jealous? Look at this. Mmm. Look, a burger. A chicken burger. Mmm, food. So good. Mmm. 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 Beer. Are you guys allowed to have beer anymore in Britain or Russia? It must be hard with all the Muslims who don't like beer. I like bacon. You guys eat bacon? Bacon's really good. You guys, you should try it. Keep you polluted. I got a chicken burger. You don't. Mmm. I got beer. I got French fries or freedom fries. I don't know what that means.
What's that?
No, I'm not gonna do that. So, yeah, I love bacon. Wait, is that legal still in the UK?
Yes.
Has it been banned yet? You can stop being I am not Russian.
Just so Russian isn't that good.
Yeah, I kind of thought that. Your English is too good.